All right, Brandon, welcome to the call. Welcome to the Empower Network.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm super excited. We were just talking about parenting, and you are the B Dadly guy, and I actually put in the description, kind of like manly but better.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what you do, how you came to do this, why you started this, your journey. You said you have your own. What did you call it?
Zero to hero.
Zero to hero. So let's talk about your zero to hero journey. Like, where do you want to start with this?
I mean, to start with, my parenting journey basically started off about as rough as you can possibly get. I had my child out of marriage. I was not married. I was only 18 years old when his mother conceived him. And the conception, I like to joke that I could have been a Trojan motivational speaker, like for the company Trojan, and gone to like high schools and been like, so you hear about the parties and that you're not supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? It's exactly how they talk about it. It actually happens. It happened to me. And yeah, so I had my son. I was 6 days after my birthday is when he was born, on my 19th birthday. So I was just 19 years old. Her and I were not together. So it was like not even just outside of a marriage. It was outside of even a relationship. So we had kind of a rough start. You know, we were really, really young. And I lived actually in a different state. So it was just as hard as you could possibly imagine about being a great dad. I mean, it was just everything you could think of that could go wrong had gone wrong. And then at 5 years old, I got a phone call from his mother, and she said, you have to come get your son. He's out of control. I can't handle him anymore, and you need to come get him. And these were very different words to start with. The fact that she said your son, I was like, oh, so now he's my son. Okay, great. Because for the last 5 years, I've been trying to get him to come down here, and you're like, you know, not giving me the opportunity, but now he's my son and I need to come get him. So she had kind of a rough patch with him. His behavior was really out of control. He was massively struggling, and he got expelled from kindergarten. And so he was, I didn't even know it was possible. It's the first, and still to this day, I have not met another person who's like, yeah, my kid was expelled in kindergarten. Like, because when I meet that person, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. I've been waiting to meet you. But he was expelled in kindergarten. They lived in a small town, had one elementary school. So she just didn't have any options. And I got custody of him. I went and picked him up after just a couple of days notice. Brought him back to Texas. And I thought at that time that I knew what he needed. I thought in my head, you know, she's probably been so permissive. She's probably just, you know, who knows what she's been up to with her parenting, but I know what he needs. What he needs is some good discipline. He needs structure, and he needs to be told that if he does the right thing, we're going to reward him for that. And so I deployed that model, and that model to me made perfect logical sense. You know, it's what I call today the carrot and stick model of parenting. You know, if you do the wrong thing, we've got a stick for you. You do the right thing, we've got a carrot for you. And I really believed at the time that that was going to heal all of his behavior challenges. And unfortunately, that's not what I experienced. I spent about 2.5 years deploying that model. And while he wasn't expelled again, I couldn't really say that behaviorally he was doing immensely better. I had babysitters quitting on me. I had conversations with principals every single week. I had to go get him from school early on a lot of days because they would say, it's just not working out today. We need you to come get your son. They made a lot of accommodations for him instead of expelling him. They found lots of loopholes and ways to get him pulled out of class and put in different areas and talking to the counselor and all of these different things. And I was very consistent with my discipline, extraordinarily consistent. And I also would tell him all the time, look, you can trust me. If I say something's going to happen, it's going to happen. But that's a positive or a negative. If I tell you that you have a good day, we're going to go get frozen yogurt. And if you have a good day, we're going to do that. You know, if I tell you that, you know, if you have a poor day again today, you're going to lose another privilege. That too is going to happen. You can trust me. what I didn't realize is that I was deploying a model that I was raised with, which is that if children are doing bad, you make them feel bad. And the more difficult they are, the more extreme you need to be with your discipline. I had my dad and my brothers and everybody in my family telling me, you just need to whoop his ass. I'm like, yeah, we've done that. We've done that a lot. So what now? What do you do if spankings aren't working? What do you do if groundings don't seem to get you anywhere? Where do you go from there? And that's kind of where I was. And one day he came home and he had been in trouble again. And we were at basically the low of all lows. He had no door on his wall because I felt like I couldn't trust him. He had been grounded at one point and took a marker and wrote all over the wall. So I removed his door because I was like, I can't even trust you in your own room. So he had no privacy, no gaming machines. He couldn't go see friends. He wasn't going to get any desserts or anything like that. No special treatment, no privileges. And he had been basically removed of all things that were pleasurable. And I'm getting a little bit emotional about this because this takes me back to a really dark time for us. But he said to me, Dad, I am sorry. I don't mean to make you and my teachers angry. I'm just a bad kid.
Oh.
And that day broke my heart. And I said to him, I said, son, here's what I want you to know. You're not a bad kid. Like you don't come out inherently bad. You're inherently good. You have some bad habits. You have some behaviors that you need to work on, but you're not a bad kid. But I also had to take a really hard look in the mirror and realize maybe some of what we've been doing has been teaching him that. Maybe some of the, how many times have I told you, or maybe some of the, if you do this again one more time, I'm going to, maybe those messages had something inside of them that were giving him the identity of a bad kid. So I took a hard look in the mirror and I said, you know what? I recognize habits. I actually professionally was a coach and I trained people on habits, and I could not get my son to behave. And yet I could help all these people make habits, break habits. I could, train them on how to lose weight, how to quit nicotine, all of these things, but I couldn't seem to help my son. And I realized that one of the things I taught was, if you want new outputs, you've got to change the inputs. And him and I were in a vicious cycle. So he was in his habits and I was in my habits, and my parental habits for responding to his behavior were a cycle I was repeating. So I realized I can't expect my, 7.5-year-old to change his habits or change the inputs. I have got to change some inputs here because me and the teachers are all doing the same thing over and over again. So I took that and I said, you know what, I'm going to figure out how can I do things differently to get a different response. And that took me to the store and being humble enough to go buy a parenting book or two. And I started devouring parenting books. I started signing up for local parenting classes. I started going and meeting with experts. I got into therapy. I got him into therapy. We started working on this stuff and we started doing really deep work. And I learned some really valuable things along the way. And one of those things was that you don't have to make a child feel worse to get them to do better.
You don't have to make a child feel worse. Okay. So you learned this, but we've all been trained this way.
I know.
It was done to me. I did it to my daughter. So what the hell?
Yeah. So we are raised in a model in our society that you have to make a child feel bad to get them to do good. But the interesting thing is that children who feel bad often they're not doing so well. And children that feel good usually do good. And so if we're making a child feel worse to get them to do better, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. It's like we're trying to fill a bucket while poking holes in it. It doesn't work. What works far better is to actually help them with their self-esteem, is to work on the relationship, is to work on the connection, is to make the connection foundational. Where I was raised in a family, if you didn't behave the right way, then you couldn't be with us. And the problem was with him is that I didn't realize the value of connection. And today I tell people all the time, and it's something that I believe with so much conviction because I've seen it now on not just for my child, for my second child, for people that I work with. if connection is, I'm sorry, if correction, you're correcting your child is exceeding your connection, you're going to have problems.
Okay, so I just want to ask you about this because I see this play out in my relationship with myself. When I feel good, it's easier for me to go work out. It's easier for me to eat healthy. It's easier to fill in the blank. When I don't feel good, regardless of why, emotionally, it is so much harder to make those right choices.
Yes, exactly. And so your job as a parent is to help your child feel more confident, more capable, more connected, more loved, because the better that they feel on those levels, the better they will do behaviorally.
Okay, so you obviously had this epiphany moment because you said you and the teachers were doing the same inputs, but your son at 7.5 at the time, he was not able to correct his own inputs. He's a kid. So what did you had this moment of going, clarity, we need to change. What did you actually do then? How did you practically change?
Oh man, I changed on so many levels. So there was this part where I started to learn like the what to do, right? Where it was like, okay, instead of correcting him by yelling, screaming, or doing these things, I need to do these new things, right? Hold boundaries with respect, practice kindness while correcting, doing these things were what I needed to do. And yet I could not do them. My old programming was so ingrained in me. I was re-traumatizing my child based on trauma I had experienced. So I actually entered myself into anger management because I realized I was like, okay, now I know I need to manage these things a little better. And yet I am feeling incapable of doing it. I am so triggered. So I had to learn how to forgive him. We started doing things. I told him one day, I said, you know how, son, if your game isn't working really well and like you've got kind of something got frozen, that we hit a hard reset on the game and kind of power down and repower up. And he's like, yeah. I said, honey, I want to do that with you. I want to do that with our life. I want to do a hard reset. Wow. I want to give you another chance. I want to reset this circuit. And so we made an agreement that I would see him with fresh eyes each day. I'm telling you, man, this is emotional stuff because this is deep work. This is for me, it became the most important thing I've ever done. And so, yeah, so I had to change a lot of things. I had to change, for example, not reacting, not telling. I used to spend so much time lecturing. I would lecture, and tell. Today, I tell parents all the time, the only thing you should lecture about is what you appreciated they did. If you're going to spend any time lecturing, tell them how much you appreciated something that you could acknowledge. Everything else you should be asking. Hey, how did that go? What did you feel? How would you have liked it to gone better? What could we have done differently? What do you want to do in the future? What can you commit to? How are you working on things? What's been hard for you lately? Asking amazing questions. I learned that parent, the actual word parent, I love to learn the etymology and the root of words. Mm. Parent actually meant to draw out.
Really?
So it's what it means to draw out. That is exactly what it means to parent. We think of parenting as putting in, but there is character that needs to be pulled out of our children. There are skills that need to be pulled out. There are values, there are insights, there are disciplines that need to be pulled out of our children that they have within them. And if we try to stuff in, we don't really get the effect that we think we do. Children today are burned out. I know 7-year-olds, 7 years old. You can't put another thing on top of them. They are stressed beyond belief from their environment, from their school, from the way that everybody manages everything. They are stressed and burned out. If you try to stuff more in on them, it's just too much. It just breaks the camel's back. What I've learned is like telling versus asking. When you ask, you create space. But when you tell, you put stuff into what is already often a tight space.
So you're inviting them into a conversation where they can actually be creatively, they can creatively be part of the solution, which puts them, they don't even realize it's going on, but it puts them into play mode. It gets them into the theta or whatever brainwave, which that's where the inspiration happens. So you're saying inviting people in just like you would coach someone.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
did that go for you, 7-year-old? Okay,
Yeah.
so practically what changed with you and your boy? Because you were one way and then you shifted. So what did that look like? Whether 3 months, a year later, what did it practically look like?
So some of the things, first of all, today, just let me I'll fast forward to today. Okay.
Sure.
Today I have a 17-year-old child. He's like into drop shipping and entrepreneurship. He's had a long-term girlfriend. This kid works out like he's more disciplined than I am with working out. Yesterday, there was a kid party, a Sunday afternoon kid party. They had a bunch of pizzas and they said, hey, would you like to take some of these home for Sheldon? Right? He's a 17-year-old. So they're thinking this kid wants, I said, no, because when he came here earlier, I offered to make him a plate of pizza. And he said to me, sorry, Dad, I don't want a dirty bulk. So he's trying to get big. He will not eat the pizza. He's 17 years old. He's that disciplined.
I will not dirty bulk. I've never heard that.
Dirty bulk is when you eat macros that are not healthy for you in order to gain size.
That's amazing.
So he did not want to eat the pizza because he didn't want to dirty bulk because he wants to be a bodybuilder. So he likes to work out.
Yeah.
So he's disciplined about his food, about all these things, right? So he also has learned how to own his mistakes and work through them. He comes to me and tells me about things that he's working on. We have conversations each week that we check in on his virtues. Where are you at with the virtues you want to build? One of the virtues he's working on right now is temperance. And he is the one that is guiding how much temperance he feels like he needs. And that was just an expression of him working on temperance, was him saying no to a pizza. So I just have a child who's working so much more in such an advanced way compared to, I feel like, what I would have had I continued down the path I was going down, which it would have ended up with more resentment, rebellion, just more low self-esteem. Who knows where he would be? He might be in juvenile detention right now if we had continued down the path that we were going down. And so I'm just very confident today that he will be a successful adult, which I have learned now that is probably one of the best feelings you can have as a parent, is that my child is going to be successful because they have the character traits, the skills, they have the processing power to become successful in something. And so,
can I ask a question about that? Because he's 17.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the parent that the story you just told is very telling of your boy? What do you say to the parent then who's like, okay, I realize I've been on autopilot for however long and it's not going well. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that your gut instincts are going to be to correct them and become hardcore. And I would want you to know that the relationship with that child is the foundation for you having any impact whatsoever. So if you were to ask yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, how is my connection to this child? If your connection is lower than a 6, don't waste your time on correcting them. You have no influence. If you want influence, improve that number and you will automatically gain the kind of influence you're desiring.
How do you build connection? This is really rudimentary questions. I realize that, but I don't have the connection with my daughter that I want.
Yeah.
So how do you build connection?
There's a couple different ways. The first one is quality time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. People think all the time, I'm so busy, and they're trying to do their own thing. And how do we get that time? It's quality, not quantity. 10 minutes of heart to heart, one-to-one, no cell phones, no digital stuff, doing what they want to do, asking them, what would they like to show you? What would they like to do with you? Is there something that you guys could spend time on, doing something that is important to them? It's like my dad used to make me go fishing. I love fishing, by the way, now, But I will say that he used to say, you know, his way of spending quality time with me was me doing what he wanted to do.
Hmm.
At some point, you got to do what they want to do too, right? You got to build in that quality time. So you build in quality time. That's essential. The second thing is to empathize. We are so quick to tell children what they should think, what they should feel, tell them, you know, minimize when their feelings seem, you know, irrational, which the younger they are, the more irrational they are. But we are so quick to do that. And we don't realize the value has nothing to do with solving it or telling them what they should think about it. The value is them feeling seen and heard. That's the exercise. If they come to you and they're upset or they look frustrated, you can even acknowledge if they haven't come to you. Hey, you look really upset right now. Are you okay? And what you can do is, I use this script. I help parents get in this place by using scripts as a way to start. I imagine if I were in your shoes. This is just an age-old script. I imagine if I were in your shoes, and then fill in the blank. I might feel, and then you want to shoot for 3 emotions. This is a great model for connection. That, by the way, it works with your wife as well. It will work with your subordinates. It will work with anyone, truly, because this is actually a relationship advice more than it is anything. But you're going to shoot for 3 emotions that you see beyond the surface level emotions. So your child looks angry, you're looking to describe 3 emotions of that anger. Man, you look really, you know, frustrated. And it seems like maybe you feel like you're not going to get what you want. So you're feeling a little hopeless. And maybe that's leaving you really just, you know, irritated with everyone around you. Is that how you're feeling right now? And then let them correct you. Well, no, I'm not mad at everyone. I'm just upset with this. Oh, okay. I see that. What you're doing is you're just trying to create space for them to open themselves up emotionally. And what we know today, there's a lot of research on this, but if a child can come to you with emotions, and they can feel that space that you create within yourself for them to be okay with those emotions and process those emotions with you, there is a bond created. You also get oxytocin, which is a pair bonding chemical. So we're looking for oxytocin. Quality time builds oxytocin. Cuddling, contact, like a pat on the back, you know, rubbing their shoulders when you walk into the kitchen, a wink across the room or across the dinner table. These little things give them boost of oxytocin, and that's what they need. That's the chemical that they need to create that deep attachment with you. The more deeply attached they are to you, the more influence you have. So if you have a teenager and you're wishing you had more influence, I'm going to tell you, you've got to work on the relationship. You got to work on the oxytocin. You've got to pay attention to how they're doing emotionally, and then create space. Shoot for those 3 emotions. Don't make them wrong. And by the way, don't be surprised after you do this, they ask you if you have any advice.
What do you do when you're a talker, or you go to, when you're nervous, you get talking, which is really just controlling or, you know, manifesting as something, panic. What do you do if you're prone to that? Because certain people, I think I sometimes talk too much when I'm with my kid, and I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how to connect.
Yeah, own it. Say that. You know, it's literally say, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm finding myself just talking at you, like kind of talking at you. And this is something I acknowledged the other day, and I was talking to this guy, and I really want to work on that. You know, do you have any, I just feel like, yeah, you know, sometimes I get a little nervous around you, and I want to connect with you, and I don't know what to say. So I just talk.
Wow, that's vulnerable.
And then boom, just see what happens when you own it.
Wow. Let me just jump to a couple comments. Dorothy Knight's loving this. She said, I love the conscious parenting dynamic we get to experience with our kids now. It's such a beautiful energy exchange. Yeah. Being responsive rather than reactive. Okay. So what is you obviously work with parents.
Mm-hmm.
So male, like mama and dad, how does it work? It doesn't matter. Sex, it's okay.
It doesn't matter. I work with all parents. I will say that I primarily work with fathers, because one of the biggest things I work on is anger and impatience, because that was so much of my struggle. I had to learn so much around that. And so, but I also there's a number of my clients are husband and wife, and the 2 parents I work with the best are the parent who feels hopeless who's like, I feel like I've tried everything and they just won't, whatever it is, they're not trying in school, or they're doing, they're doing drugs, or they're doing the wrong things, or they're younger and they're just, they've been diagnosed with ODD or ADD. The helpless parent is someone I really love to work with, because there's nothing better than hope. There is nothing better than feeling like, wow, we're actually getting somewhere. It's just such, for me, it was the sweetest thing to feel like my son and I were making progress. I mean, that was everything. And the other parent I work with is the one who has been yelling too much, who's been triggered, and they can't seem to get out of this vicious cycle of snapping. So I work with those two parents really, really well. And yeah, we do a number of things. We talk about, we really work on them from the inside out. We work on the relationship as a foundation and then work upwards. I have tons of tools and tactics and scripts and all kinds of models for correcting behavior. But I always tell parents, we've got to get the connection there first, because what they need to feel is that you're not just trying to figure out new ways to punish them. You're trying to figure out new ways to connect with them, because that's a way more powerful message. And then, of course, we have opportunities for holding boundaries, and we're not going to become permissive parents. I'm not suggesting that parents become their best friends even. My children know, like, there's authority in the house, but it's coming from the most loving place. So we try to hold this boundary of respect. For my family, it's respect, health, and safety. If we're outside of those three, we've got to talk, and we've got to get ourselves back into that place. With respect, for example, if a child and you have been fighting a lot, you can say to the child, I'm happy to speak with you when you can speak with me as respectfully as I'm talking to you. You can hold a boundary of respect. You could say, I love you too much to fight like this. And until we can be respectful again, I think we should both take some space. Or I respect you too much to argue like this. You can say those messages and hold firm boundaries while also holding a boundary for yourself. And it's a great way to model it for your children. I've seen my 7-year-old say, I'm sorry, I just need some space.
What I appreciate you saying, Stathula says, this is so helpful. What I appreciate you saying is that you recognize that the way your child was manifesting, it was largely because of you, and because of the mom, you, because children they grow up in that garden, whatever the garden the parents have cultivated, that's what the kids grow up in. So, and we all got our own bents, but I appreciate you started with you. Your story started with you, Brandon. It didn't start with how your child was the problem. It started with, what did you need to look at in yourself? And really, though it's humbling and vulnerable, that's where the power starts.
So much more empowering.
That's where the hope starts. There's no hope
Yes.
if we're projecting blame outward.
Yes.
There's zero hope.
And here's the thing. So there's two things that we can control. We control ourselves and we control our environment, both of which have a really profound effect on the results that we get. And so with our children, for example, creating an environment that is, there's less yelling, there's less toxicity in terms of our communication, there's less stress. If we control our environment, we actually help the process out a lot. It's amazing how big of a difference that can make. There's a great practice. It's a Danish practice. It's called Hygge. It's spelled Hygge. And in America, we use it in design, but it's called Hygge. And it's something they do regularly. They do it with their friends, neighbors, family. And what it is it's about enjoying the simple pleasures in life. And so what they'll do is they'll turn off, all screens. They'll basically kind of create a romantic environment. They'll set candles, maybe like play some low playing music. They'll have games out and they'll put out snacks. And it's the entire process is just about connecting. It's just about the family enjoying one another. We don't have anything like it here. If the closest thing to it is when teenagers go, hey, you want to chill? Like they want to hang out together. We need to do this with our families. It is incredibly healing to create 1 or 2 of these nights a week where you and your family chill, because we need to chill. We actually need relaxation. We do not relax enough as a society here. And Hygge with your kids, You show them how we can regulate our nervous systems. You show them why it's important for us to sometimes enjoy the smaller things, the simpler things. And it's a practice that is really, really, really super valuable. And that's environmental. And so we control the environment and we can control ourselves. And if you control those two things well, you will see them reflected in your children. And so that's way more empowering than trying to constantly force your children to bend the knee. By modeling these things, creating that space, creating that experience for them and showing them. When my son yesterday didn't want to leave the birthday party, right? And this is typical of a 7-year-old. He doesn't want the party to end. And I know exactly what that's like, to just not want it to be over. But I had to draw the line. We had to go home. Instead of constantly telling him, you're going to get to play again. And, you just need to be appreciative for what we did do. And, typical stuff. I just said, hey, come with me. We go to the bedroom. We just laid in the bed and I just held him and I breathed through my nose, in and out my nose, which is incredibly powerful for the nervous system. And I breathed. And you know what happened? His breath started to match mine. His cadence started to match mine. So what I did is I regulated my nervous system with him against me.
Wow.
And by osmosis, his nervous system regulated itself.
Wow. Thank you for what you've delivered today, Brandon. This has been absolutely beautiful. Anyone watching this will be impacted, especially if they're a parent. Even more so. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
How should people get in contact with you? I know a bit about you. You've got a private Facebook group, which they could join if they are a parent. That'd be probably a really good thing for them to do, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to www.bdadley.com. That's DADLY. bdadley.com, and you can book a consultation. The first consultation is absolutely free. And then also on there, I have email tips and strategies. We have a newsletter. We have a blog post. I've got a podcast. You can look me up on the socials at BDadley Official. And there's lots of ways to get a hold of me.
Sounds like there's also a lot of hope.
Oh, absolutely. That's the best thing we can have as parents. And one of the things I like to tell parents all the time is, you think that you need to be at the top of Mount Everest. All you need to do is be on the path. It's the real feeling is that we're on the path and we are making progress. It's when you're in the ditches, you don't feel good. But if you're on the path, if you make a little bit of progress, man, it goes a long ways, especially if you've been struggling for a while. Feeling that bit of progress in that communication within yourself and kind of having a sense of what to do. Man, it is like a breath of fresh air.
Well, thank you for being here in the Empower Network. I will be tagging you in this, and you just brought so much value here today. It's tremendous to see. Jan just says, my son needs your parenting advice. It's tremendous to see a man who has, you've obviously paid the price to be here, and now you have living testament that these ways are working, as well as your coaching and all this stuff. So you're a gift to humanity, Brandon. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Well, and I received that.
Jennifer Northrup says, yes, this was so helpful. I jotted down a couple notes, but so much of it hit me hard. Would love to learn and hear more. Check out your site. Thank you so much. Yeah, Jennifer, check out bdadley.com. I'll also be tagging Brandon in this. And thanks, Brandon, for being here. I'll message you after. I'll shoot you the links to this stuff. But really pleased to hear just everything you shared. It really hit me today too. So
good. I'm so grateful. Thank you, man.
Much appreciated. If you've been watching the Empower Network, you've been watching Brandon Jones from bdadley.com. Please check him out. You won't be disappointed. Chat soon, everyone.
Thanks.